Hi. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Kelly. So thanks so much for watching. I'm here today to talk about my story and my life with chronic pain. So while I've built up a good life for myself and like to stay as positive as I can, a life with chronic pain certainly hasn't come without its challenges. So May is Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and Hypermobility Spectrum Disorder Awareness Month. So I've decided to take up the challenge this month to share more about this syndrome and my life with this to raise awareness. So I'm just sharing my story and journey. And as I'm not a medical professional, it's not giving any advice. It's not a diagnosis or treatment, just telling you what it's been like for me. So if it's something that you're dealing with, you should definitely see a doctor and not just base it off this video. So everyone's journey and symptoms with hypermobility spectrum disorder or hypermobility syndrome and Ehlers-Danlos syndrome are different. And I'm very lucky to not suffer as bad as some do. As well, with anyone that suffers with chronic pain, everyone's journey and symptoms are different, and one really can't be compared to the other. So during this month, I'm going to share about my journey with hypermobility, my other health issues, and my chronic pain, as well as sharing more about this syndrome to raise awareness. So I was born with hypermobility, and a lot of people find that getting a diagnosis with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome or hypermobility syndrome is a very hard, long road. So Ehlers-Danlos syndrome affects the connective tissue, or as I like to say, it's defective connective tissue. So hypermobility or Ehlers-Danlos syndrome have a varying range of symptoms. What I do suffer with is chronic pain. My joints will sublex. So my hips, my shoulders, knees, ribs, and other joints at times as well. And this causes terrible pain or nerve pain as well, like down my arms or down my legs. Sometimes the pain goes up into my neck, causing terrible headaches. Or I'll have the nerve pain that goes down the leg underneath the foot, which can make it rather uncomfortable to walk. So when I have these subluxations, or as I used to like to say when I was growing up, that it would go out of alignment, it can sometimes take a while to go back into place. And then I find even once it goes back into alignment, that the pain will linger for a while. So while I have the hypermobility in my muscles, they also get really tight as they are trying to protect the joints to stay in place. So then I have to have the extra pain from the tightness of the muscles. I do have whole body pain. So the pain is basically whole body for me. I really don't remember what it's like to live without pain. There isn't a day where it's not there. And it just does vary to different degrees to the strength of the pain. So I have a lot of fatigue. It doesn't take much to get me exhausted. So sometimes to the point I'm not able to do much. I suffer with a whole lot of allergies and digestion issues. I now eat gluten-free, a vegan diet, so gluten-free and processed sugar-free. I do have TMJ, which is an issue with my jaw, which then will cause me headaches when I'm having issues with that. Some days I have brain fog. I also have this issue with not being able to go into air conditioning without my body swelling. So I can put on, say, like 3 kilograms in fluid just in one day from the swelling. So in the warmer months, I can't go into do my own shopping. I can't go to the movies. Also, anywhere with air conditioning makes it hard for me. Then sometimes I will swell for no reason, or maybe it's due to the weather, the rain, or the colder months. And I've now tested positive for an autoimmune disease, just waiting for a diagnosis on this. I've also had doctors suspect that I have HEDS or hypermobile type EDS. However, I haven't gone down the path of this diagnosis yet. Maybe one day I will. Driving is another issue for me. I'm only able to drive myself short distances. No problem as a passenger, but driving myself, just the pain or the tiredness can get too much from being in that driver's seat in the one position for too long. So when I actually first started learning how to drive, I couldn't use my hands for a few days after. It was a tough time. So now I feel really lucky that I'm able to drive at all. So on the odd occasion, I also get to this point where I can't stand to be touched, or even just a strand of hair on my body causes pain. Or if someone's standing too close, it can cause me that pain as well, terrible pain. So, and I'm really lucky that that only happens a few times a year and it doesn't last for long. So I've been asked over time to share my story around my health and around my lifetime, or so my life journey of living with chronic pain. I have shared small portions, but now I feel it's the right time for me. So please just bear with me if it's a bit all over the place, as it's something I do find difficult to share or confronting to tell. But as I'm moving along with my journey, I feel this is the right time now. And if it can raise awareness or help somebody else along with their journey, then that's even better. So this year is 30 years since I started dealing with chronic pain from the age of 9. Not to say that I hadn't had issues before then, but that's when the physical pain started. So I was born with hypermobility, even though I wasn't diagnosed until I was an adult. So when I was a baby, my thumbs would pop out of their sockets, and I had what they called then really loose muscles that the doctor said I would just grow out of, but I definitely didn't. When I was in school, I used to be able to freak people out with my flexible joints. They're not as flexible now as they used to be. They have tightened a little since when I was younger, but I used to be able to do all the party tricks then. When I was a child, I had terrible trouble with my balance. Well, actually, I still have terrible trouble with my balance. It took me years to be able to learn to ride a bike. And when I was in preschool, this was when I realized that I was different. So for the first time that I was different to others. We had to walk this narrow plank or block of wood, which I couldn't do because of my balance issues. And they insisted that I did, even though mum told them that they were not to make me do it. They made me stay back and keep trying and trying while all the other kids were off playing. And this was the time that I realized I was different. And I believe this might be where I started to build up my belief of I am not good enough. So the narrative that I've struggled with. The chronic pain itself started one June day when I was 9. It started at the start of the school holidays. I remember a little portion of the day really clearly. So we were at my great aunt's helping her move. And I remember I was wearing my favorite Mickey Mouse t-shirt. It was the afternoon and I started to get sore feet. So mum just told me to go and sit down. The next day I woke up and I couldn't walk. I was in that much pain. I don't remember too much about the next 2 weeks when I was bedridden with that pain. I remember going to the doctors, getting pricked with needles for all the different blood tests, to be diagnosed with juvenile arthritis. I remember my granddad bought me in their portable black and white TV, and he brought my grandmother in most days to sit with me. She would knit, and they bought me a long stitch for me to do. It took me years to complete that long stitch, but I ended up loving them. And through my teenage years, I've done a lot more of those when there was times that I couldn't do other things. What I don't remember is what I was feeling. I don't remember the actual physical pain, and I don't remember any of the emotions that I was feeling. It's something that I've completely blocked out. When I think back, that little girl must have been so scared. She didn't know if she was ever going to be able to walk again. And my family must have felt the same. So over the years, there's been a lot of times where I've ended up back bedridden or hardly able to walk. And I actually feel really lucky that it's something I don't suffer with now. When I first got diagnosed with my arthritis, the teachers at the school I was at were really horrible to me. So mum changed me schools, which was much more inclusive. They would have someone run for me when we played T-ball. I was always a goalie when we played netball. And they usually had an activity that I could participate in on a Friday afternoon. And if there wasn't a sport that I could do or some sort of other little game, they would have an art project for me to do. This inclusivity was really important to me. And unfortunately, not everyone gets that, to feel that included. And as I found, it's harder when you're growing up with chronic pain to make friends, if you really can't run and play like everyone else. I do remember in grade 7, we were studying this book called Jodie's Journey. It was about a young girl who got arthritis and was in a wheelchair. The one thing that really stood out to me in that story was that when she couldn't flip a tea towel at her brother because it caused her too much pain, and everyone in the class was laughing, but I just felt like crying because I knew all too well things that I wasn't able to do that everyone else just took for granted. Other than having times when I was hardly able to walk, I'd go through the struggling times of not being able to cut my own meal, not brush my own hair. There was countless times I would threaten to shave off my lovely hair when I was a teenager. I feel sorry for my mum. So high school had its own set of problems. Here, I was lucky to build a great group of friends, but it was here that I learned to stand up for myself. So the doctors had advised no playing sport, no running, no competitive swimming. Well, my first HPE teacher, he didn't like that fact, that I wasn't involved, and didn't seem to like the fact that I told him no. But it was a really great lesson in learning to stand up to people when it came to my health. So doctors seem to be another little issue. But at the age of 13, I shifted from my lovely pediatrician, who had tried so many drugs to get my pain under control, to a rheumatologist. So they said my juvenile arthritis had left me, and he diagnosed me with fibromyalgia. It was always like the doctors didn't believe you when you would go with an issue. Like when I was really dizzy, I used to get very dizzy when I was growing up. Doesn't happen now as often, but I used to get very dizzy growing up. And it was like they looked at you as though you were stupid, like it couldn't be happening. It then wasn't until I went to another rheumatologist when I was 21 that I got my official diagnosis of hypermobility syndrome. It wasn't something that was really explained to me at the time. I couldn't take any of the medication that he had tried me on. It would either make me sick or drowsy, or I wasn't able to sleep. So I got the whole, can't help you, without an explanation of really what the condition was. And I really wished he would have told me how important it was to strengthen my muscles. So I just got on with life the best way I could with the pain. I lost 40 kilos over 2 years. And then when I was at a routine doctor's visit, they had seen that I had lost so much weight. And she was stunned when I said losing the weight really hadn't made any difference to my pain level. I worked hard. I kept pushing myself, determined to prove that this pain wasn't going to stop me. But what I did do was just keep pushing myself so hard that I would then end up spending most weekends resting just to be able to work the next week. I'd work for so long to build myself up to burnout and then have to take time off to recover. And then just go back into that same cycle again. It was like I was trying to prove to myself or to others that I wasn't going to let this pain win, that I could be like everyone else. This working myself to burnout wasn't good for me. So that's the cycle that I'm now working on breaking and learning to put myself and my health first. So over the years, I have built up this controlled safety manner, which I believe stems from not being able to control my pain. So I wanted to control other areas of my life. Growing up with pain was a really hard childhood, and even suffering pain as an adult is extremely hard as well. So spending so much time growing up in pain, I really feel that shaped my identity. Even though I didn't want to let the pain control me or be who I was, it certainly influenced who I became and what I did. It was like an emotional roller coaster. And I must say at times I really struggled, not knowing how to cope with it all and having days wishing this wasn't my life and asking the question, why me? But I always got past this as I wanted to live a great life. What it has given me is an amazing strength, determination, and compassion. It's certainly made me a warrior, so the meaning of my name. And it has also given me gratitude for the little things, like being able to walk, drive short distances. It's really amazing to me. So just enjoying those little things in life. And I'm very grateful for my family and the wonderful support system I have. So living with an invisible illness can be really tough. You might look healthy, but certainly don't feel that way. And I've found not everyone will believe you. And I've also learned not to share how I feel with everyone. I used to tend to just say, good, thank you, no matter how I felt. So over the years, I had gone through tough times when my pain was really bad. I'd often didn't have to cancel plans because I was too sore, had bad headaches, or just way too exhausted. So when things reached their worst point, I would sit at night in so much pain, just crying, trying to release that pain a little. And Marley, my gorgeous dog, would sit there with her head in my lap. So I'm so pleased that my pain levels are not that high anymore. Dogs can be really smart. She can sense when I'm in pain. There's been a few times when I've woken up in a lot of pain, and there she is sitting next to me, watching over me. And then she always likes to rest her head on me whenever I'm in my worst pain. So it's amazing how they know. It was when I got to that really bad point in my life, to the point I feel really lucky now that I'm here, when I decided I needed to make changes in my life. It was after this that I started my yoga teacher training, as I wanted to learn more about yoga because it had helped me so much with my pain. At the time when I started yoga, which was probably about 8 years ago or so, well before I started my yoga teacher training, and after many years of people telling me I should try yoga for my pain, but I always thought, how was that going to help me? I was really wrong. Yoga helped so much. What I didn't realize was that the doctors didn't recommend yoga for EDS or HSD. But I found as long as I have the correct alignment with my yoga poses, I don't try to push myself into the poses that I'm not strong enough for, and that I really listen to my body, then yoga is the best thing for me that I can do for my pain. So everyone is different, but yoga really works for me. So I've learned to listen to my body. I've learned so much about myself and my body. I've come to know that any stress or anxiety really makes my pain levels a lot worse. And anxiety and depression are certainly very common for anyone that suffers with a chronic pain condition. I was diagnosed with CPTSD from my past trauma or childhood trauma. And now I finally came to accept that it's time to take time out and look after myself. When I was sitting through a meditation one day, what came up for me was that I wasn't good enough. And that seems to be everything that comes back to me now with things that I do, that I'm not good enough. This certainly isn't true, but it's what I kept being replaying for me. Of course I am good enough, but I've had this unconscious belief that I didn't even realize before, that I had this belief that I wasn't good enough, which I guess built up from all the times I've suffered as a child. I'm now going down the path of healing my trauma and working on regulating my nervous system and trying to be more present in the moment. I feel living with pain has you sitting in this fight or flight so much that I really need to keep bringing myself back to a calmer state. And I'm doing that with my breath work and my meditation. I'm also trying to build my physical strength. While HSD is something that I'm going to have for the rest of my life, I'm working towards wellness and being the most healthiest person I can possibly be, to really find balance in my life. Thanks so much for listening to my story if you made it this far. I really appreciate being able to share. I found it very freeing to tell my story. Over the next few weeks, you'll see me showing up regularly in May to share a lot more about this condition and my health journey. And then after that, more about my journey to wellness that I'm currently on. I would love it if you felt called to share this video, especially if you think it could help someone that you know. If you don't already, feel free to follow me on all the socials or my YouTube channel, which I'm going to start eventually. I also have a Facebook group for Wellness Journey. It's not active at the moment. It's that I intend to grow as I continue along my journey. You can find those either in my bio or there'll be a link down below, depending on where you're listening to this. You might also like to join my newsletter, as I will be sharing more information on my journey to wellness as that develops. For anyone that suffers with chronic pain, you are certainly not alone. And I would love to hear your story, so please feel free to reach out. Thanks again for listening, and please take care. Bye.